Hello, today we're going to be installing the Bottleworks heat build plate with borosilicate glass. It's a very nice plate I just got in actually. I love the quality of it, very well done. Wires are definitely high quality. And the glass does have 3D printed handles on it, but they're very well done. Very good 3D prints. They're not sloppy. 300 microns or anything like that. Did a nice job with it. The glass has been dulled, so it's not as sharp if you're running any type of window pane glass from your local hardware store, like I am actually, where you have more of a chance of cutting yourself. Although he still does recommend using leather gloves that will not cut or tear easily when handling this, and he still recommends being very cautious in regards to that. Of course, if you order this, the first thing I'm going to tell you is don't depend on my video solely. Make sure you read the instructions that come with it and all the warnings that are associated with it as well. I've already read over these and they're fairly basic for the work I've done in the past, so I decided to run a quick video. So, rule number 1. Let's go ahead and power down our Replicator 2. Now in my case, I'm actually running a Replicator 2 with a Replicator 2X heated build plate on there, the aluminum build plate that's known for its warping issues. So I'm going to be removing the aluminum 2X build plate from a Replicator in this demonstration of installing the Bottleworks build plate. If you're running a Replicator 2X, you'll be removing the same one. If you're running a Replicator 2, you'll be removing this acrylic one, which is actually a lot simpler to remove. So you'd follow the same instructions in the video here that I'm producing, but at the same time, there's no wires to disconnect because you currently have no power going to an acrylic plate. Now you want to take your extruder. In my case, I put it to the back left-hand corner here. Now I've already removed my panel from some work I was doing earlier today. If you have a 2X, you already have a current power hooked up to your current heat bed plate, and this is what we need to disconnect here today before going forward with the installation of the new one. So we're going to go ahead and take this plug and disconnect it and feed the plug back in through the hole. Now the power on the Bottleworks build plate is actually a different cable and different cord altogether. So we're going to have to remove this cord that's currently installed. The first thing we'll do is remove the thermostat sensor, which is right in the middle here. So we got that taken out. The next thing we need to do is remove the power up here. So I use a number 3 flathead, counterclockwise unscrew, and I remove these as well. Now this does have a carbon filter on here. Carefully make sure nothing else is in your way. Right now I can tell you my stepper controller motor here for my Z-axis is in my way, so I'm going to unplug this just to get that out of the way to be on the safe side. And then you can simply pull this straight back or slide it straight down, either way, whichever is easier for you. And your power cable that runs behind will come out like so. Now if you're using a Replicator 2, you're going to find a plastic piece covering this hole here. This hole down here. So with that plastic piece, you just want to pop that out and you'll hear it fall inside the cabinet. And then we'll take that out when we turn it back up over on its side again. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we're going to raise the Z-axis a little bit here. Even pressure on both arms. brings it up nicely. And then I'm going to pinch one side, and we're just going to unscrew these leveling nuts that you use to level your build plate before you print. Now before you go lifting up this plate, you need to reach underneath, and there's a little lip here that the cable runs into, and it slides to your left, and it just simply disconnects. So you make sure it's completely disconnected underneath and it's not in that lip. Bring your Z-axis down a little bit, lift straight up, and you can feed the wire through there like so. And you've removed the 2X aluminum warping build plate. I mean, stock build plate. So we'll set that aside. I'm not going to use my spacers, but we still do need the springs. Well, good thing I'm not using the spacers, I dropped one anyway. We'll still need to hang on to the springs for the new build plate installation. Now in the kit with the build plate comes all the screws and all the hardware that you need. So we have 3 screws. It's these three screws right here. And we're going to feed these 3 screws in from the top, like so. And then there's 3 little nuts that will go on these screws. And you want to feed these nuts all the way up, so you hold those screws in flush with the build plate, like so. You shouldn't have any play here at all. And we have our 3 bolts assembled on the heat bed plate now. We're going to take our wires, and we're going to run these through the hole in the back here, and carefully feed them underneath. And I'm just going to set this on the side for the time being. We're going to grab the 3 spacers that came in the kit with the heat build plate, and the 3 springs from the one you took off. So you got 3 spacers like so with your 3 springs. The spacers go on the spring as such. I'm going to put it on here. Again, the spacers are going to be on the bottom. They're not to go on the top. Once I have the spacers and springs on place, I can simply slide and wiggle around a little bit to get it into the holes. And there you have it. Now we're going to put our tensioning nuts back on, which are these guys from the original one that you took off. Now we're going to grab the spacer that fills the hole and guides the wires. I'm going to feed the sensor wires through like so, because it has the plug on it. And I'm going to bring the power wires through like so. And I'm actually going to run this through to about the bottom here. That's as far as it will go, and then feed my wires through. Feeding the wires through to the left so I don't bind with any wires that are currently down there, and clipping this spacer into the hole. There it goes. Perfect. Looks very nice. I like it. Does look good. So let's check it real quick. No wire binding, no catching. Looks clean. Okay. Let's flip her over and install the wiring on the other side. Our thermistor wire plugs in only one direction, one way. It's kind of like the audio cables off the CD-ROMs back in the day. Right here in the middle. Done. You may want to, there's so much wire on here, I may actually feed mine up through the back of the board. Well, that's a good plug. Now he recommends making sure these wires are twisted before putting them into the power, which is so true. To make things easier, you can either run one wire up at a time, or I'm going to see if I can twist these. Because of the quality of the braid on this wire, I don't know if it'll make a difference. I may not be able to run them both up at the same time. All right. Pull back a little shielding on the wire. Twist these like so. And back to your number 3 flathead screwdriver. Make sure it's unscrewed, loosened up all the way. Feed it in and screw it down. Do the same thing with the other wire. Wire seemed a little short, so I'm just pulling the shielding back a little bit. You don't need to cut the shielding. It's a nice cloth shielding, so it's easy to pull it back a little bit. And tighten it down. Give it a little yank test, and we're good. Okay, so everything is installed. Now we're going to put our cover back on. You have some cables up here in the right hand corner. You want to make sure they're out of the way or not getting pinched when you're putting in that screw. And flip her back down on its bottom. Now real quick, sort of off topic but not really. At this point, if you have a Replicator 2, you want to remove your current power supply if you haven't done so already. That would be this power supply here. It's either going to be a Meanwell or an FSP group depending on when you purchased your Replicator 2. The problem with this power supply is it will not run 130 watt heated bed plate. If you attempt to run this heated bed plate while running the rest of your printer, you will blow this power supply and possibly cause more damage even to your mighty board as well. So the current power supply that comes with the Replicator 2 is an output of 24 volts, 6.25 amps. That is just not enough power to do a heated bed plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this with either an internal that you probably most likely already installed yourself, which may or may not require certain soldering, and I didn't want to deal with any of that. I don't want to try to cause any warranty voids or anything like that. So I found this company called Jameco, and Jameco actually had an external power supply made by Meanwell, which is a very well-known, reputable company that Makerbot themselves used to use. So let's take a look here. And this is a one-for-one swap. It has the same plug that you currently have from your stock power supply. The block's a little bit bigger. The PSU power supply is a little bit bigger. The model number on this is GS220A24-R7B. This is a 24 volt 9.2 amp, which is the minimum requirement you will need to run a heated bed plate on a Replicator 2. If you're running a Replicator 2X, you already have a power supply that does exactly this voltage. So you're good. No need to replace that. By the way, there's extra magnets underneath here. It's only recommended to keep these extra magnets on there if you need the extra strength, but these are, again, extra. You should have 4 of them. 2 on the right, 2 on the left. I'm going to pull those off because it's not known if I'm going to need them yet or not. There's a little piece you need to adjust here with your Z-stop switch. And they claim this is from the old Replicator, and I don't know what kind of switch or if my switch is even adjustable. I won't be able to find that out yet. You should probably take a look at that. You know, since they do cover it in the instructions, I'm going to cover it here. This is actually a spare thermocoupler that I run to measure the cabin temperature. You won't have this wire on yours, so ignore this one. These just simply come out like so. After you remove your wiring harness here from unclipping it, you're going to notice that there is one more Allen key fit. Wow. Which will be needed. It needs to be removed to actually do this. But it is not the standard size of any of the Allen keys that came with the Replicator. Now I can remove this back panel. Okay, so basically what he says is the early Replicator 2s used to have this installed on the adjustable height. So you have 2 slots here, and then you have 2 fixed holes. If you find out your Z-stop switch is screwed in using the adjustable height, if you have an earlier Replicator 2, or possibly, no, it doesn't say anything about 2X, just the 2. You want to remove the screws in your Z-stop switch and move it to the fixed position height. Mine are already installed on the fixed position height, so there's nothing further for me to do here. So in the case of my Replicator 2, there was absolutely no need to do this. Mine's a later model, not an earlier one, and it already had my Z-stop switch screwed into the fixed position holes. So we're going to grab the number 4 Allen key again, which is the one that it doesn't come with. Let's put this whole thing back together again real quick. Let's go ahead and power it on. We have one last step to do if you're on a Replicator 2 that you didn't have a heat bed plate installed previously. Bottleworks does recommend using the Sailfish Firmware, which I already have installed, so mine's a non-issue. But Sailfish does a really good job on the installation instructions and how to install it. So if you're running a Replicator 2, you want to go to Utilities, General Settings, and where it says HBP installed, you want to make sure that says yes. That is now your heat bed plate, so it will give you power to your heat bed plate and measure the thermostat on that. Back under Utilities, in Preheat Settings, I'm going to start preheating mine to about 86, 85 degrees. Because he says this doesn't need to be set at 110 like the default is, and that's the final step. So for right now, I'm not going to turn on my extruder, but I will give the heat bed plate some power. Make sure it's warming up properly. I see it's actually picked up the temperature. 18 degrees, 19 degrees, and slowly heating. I'm going to stop my preheating here real quick. There we go, perfect. So I heard my switch click in, and I'm not hitting my nozzle. So when we check that, slowly make sure your glass isn't hitting the nozzle. If it is, tighten it down more, 4 turns, until you get it to the point where it's not, and then you can go through your leveling process. And notice I'm not using my spacer. So if you were running glass previously on an aluminum build or something like that, or even put glass on your acrylic for whatever reason, and you're using a spacer, remove the spacer for this build. So since we're dealing with a more level build plate, I'm actually going to start off with the 0.1 feeler. Measure it in the 3 points that you would normally measure or level at, and then see where it sits in the middle, since we are finally up to temperature here. Rule number 1, make sure you don't have any plastic on your nozzle sticking off. It will mess up your leveling. So go ahead and continue with your normal leveling of your build plate and enjoy your printing. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helped you during your installation process. Leave some comments and subscribe if you liked it. If not, who cares? Thanks for watching.